Hey folks, and welcome to Hank's True BBQ. Got my PK grill, the PK TX, rigged for some grilling action in the snow. So what are we cooking today? I thought we're gonna do some good old beef ribs, and we're gonna do a little experiment to see how does the bark turn out when you have a rub versus when you have no rub at all, just the raw meat. That'll be interesting, seeing how the color develops, how much the rub does for the bark. Not only looks, but the actual bark, but also flavor, of course. So that's what we're going to do today. So nice old A/B comparison or experiment, which I really like. I did choose the PK because I'm a big fan of the PK grill. I like the size of it, it's real convenient. We're going to set it up for indirect grilling. We're going to do a snake in this one. I'm going to show you exactly how. So low and slow smoking with some oak wood or cherry wood, I haven't decided yet. This one is really good for indirect heat because we have two vents in the top, two in the bottom. I'm going to show you how to configure those as well as the snake. What we're going to utilize, of course, is moving the hot air and smoke just like in an ordinary kettle in this one, from the bottom left side to the top right side. Well, it depends on from which way you're looking, but still. And the thing I like about this one is it's cast aluminum, so it's rock solid, the seam around. If we take a look inside, you can see I got the beefed up stainless steel grates. I really like these, super sturdy, it's gonna last a long time, and of course you can flip this one up. This is not original, but it's a nice addition. I really like that one. And I have two fireproof bricks, and I'm gonna utilize those and help me build a nice snake. Compared to kettle where you build a snake around the edges, this one is also gonna follow along the edges, but instead of being round or shaped like a C, this is actually gonna be L-shaped. But it doesn't matter much. Now if I get these two out of the way, this is the bottom grate where the charcoal is resting. Now you can see the two vents here and the two vents here. So I'm gonna let air in through here and then feed the fire and the snake, which moves along this direction. So this one's gonna be closed. So air comes in here, moves across the food and then out the other end. So I'm gonna slide that one shut and do the opposite in the lid. Easy peasy. I'm gonna get these in here. So what I do is I put this one right about here, guesstimate a bit. So this is gonna be my snake, and I'm gonna put some briquettes in here. I really like using briquettes because they're so consistent in temp. I can fit a snake about 3 to 4 briquettes thick all the way around, so this is good. I did do a lightning test or see how far I could run it, but when I started the fire here and I made it over here, it took like 8 hours. So if I continue all the way, it's going to give me a good 10 hours for that snake, which is excellent. That means it runs on very little fuel and it's super consistent in temp, which is also nice. So let's start adding some briquettes. Now don't build them too high or too tall up because I want to fit some wood chunks in for smoke flavor. And I'm gonna start this fire over here, which means I'm gonna leave this empty so I can light some briquettes in my chimney starter and then drop them in here to get the snake going. And a good way to know whether you put too much in or not is simply fit the grate on. If it fits and you can still see you can fit some wood chunks in between here, then you're good. But that's about looking like a good snake, so should be ready to get this one started. So the grill is ready, but I'm not going to fire it up until tomorrow morning because I need to prep the meat first. And we're going to do some classic, like I said, beef ribs. I'm going to cover half of it with saran wrap just while applying the rub to make sure I get no contamination, if you like, to the left versus half piece of the beef ribs. So I'm going to apply a real good beef rub. One I really enjoy, it's called Hank's Signature Seasoning. I think it's exceptional for beef ribs with the coffee and the chipotle chili flavor. So if you haven't checked it out, head on over to Amazon and get yourself one. I'll put a link down below so you can find it easily. Anyhow, is there a question whether the meat actually becomes better with the rub versus no rub? Well, not at all. I mean, I always use a rub. It always amplifies flavor and adds flavor to the meat, so no question about it. I just thought it would be a fun thing to do, to cook with and without rub on the same piece of meat, so you can see how the bark develops and how much of a difference it does make. And on the part of the beef ribs that doesn't have any rub on at all, you can easily see how the smoke flavor affects the color of the meat, and also how much bark you get, if any, when not using a rub. I'm going to use my new thermometer, Fireboard 2. Got it charged up so it's ready to go, and monitor temps on this one. Should be an easy cook, like just put the meat on, smoke it at 240 Fahrenheit, roughly 240, 250, until it's done. All we're going to do is just watch it and see how the bark develops, and at the end, of course, give it a good old taste test. So stick around. Here's the meat right now, partially thawed, just waiting for it to thaw for a few more hours before I can start trimming the fat off. The nice thing about trimming it before it's fully thawed though is that the fat is harder, so it's kind of easier to trim off. And the reason I trimmed this pretty hard, at least the top surface, is that the meat is kind of hard to see now, but I'll show you later, but it's well marbled and there's quite a bit of intramuscular fat, which means I trim this one down to the meat so I get maximum bark on the surface instead. I get the rub to attach to the meat. That's why I trim pretty hard. And it always turns out real good, again, because there's quite a lot of intramuscular fat. So it's going to be a nice one. Here's the rub I'm going to use, the one I mentioned previously, the signature steak rub. Excellent match for any beef rubs. So that's going to be good. Like I said, cover this with saran wrap, put the meat on, the rub on half of it. Now I am going to monitor, of course. As you can see, this kind of slopes down quite a bit, which is perfectly natural. Either I'm going to just prod it up like that so it stays even, or I'm going to put the rub on the top half, and the bottom half. And the reason I do that is I don't want the rub half to contaminate the non-rub half, and if it's going to go downhill, the meat juices and rub, etc., is going to kind of creep over to that side, and I don't want to have that happen, because otherwise it's not going to be a perfect experiment. So we'll see how it turns out once I've trimmed it down, and then I apply the rub. Most likely I'm going to apply the rub on the lower half, and that way I can just place it on the grates as is. But it should be easy. Anyhow, small details to take into account. Either way, it's going to be some tasty beef ribs for sure. All right, so here's the meat thawed up, ready to go. So I'm just going to trim off this fat, like you can see here. It's almost like a thick silvery membrane. It should be a quick job, just trim it off and we're ready to go. I'm going to apply dry brine as per usual, and then we're going to get the rub on early in the morning. Okay, that's looking good, so get some salt on, 1 teaspoon per kilo of meat. I'm going to guesstimate this one. That goes into the fridge, and then tomorrow morning we're going to apply rub on half of it. So it's early in the morning, ready to go. The nice thing about this being portable is that I literally picked this up, moved it inside, so it's been indoors all night, which means I don't have to warm up ice cold aluminum. That also means the briquettes are relatively warm and dry, so I'm just going to dump in some lit briquettes here to get the snake started. We're going to prep the meat, and soon we should be able to start grilling. Now this is the rub I'm going to use. As you can see, I covered this with saran wrap, so just going to shake things up. But now I'm going to apply the rub to this half, and I did choose, like I mentioned yesterday, which is to apply the rub on the sloping part. I'm going to get a good thick layer on here. I don't use a binder per se. The rub is moist enough, so should be able to get things done. Sweet. I'm gonna move things around here. So I'm gonna close the lid now and wait for the grill to come up to temp, which is, well, I'm aiming for 250, 260 Fahrenheit. Should be good. It's gonna be a nice day, nice winter grilling, cool temp. Waiting for this one to get warm enough. We're gonna drop in the wood chunks, but yeah, sweet. I enjoy these cooks because it's gonna be dead easy. I'm just gonna babysit this one till it's done. Then we get to see how much bark, the rub affects the bark. All right, coming up to temp, gonna drop in some wood chunks here for that good old smoke flavor. I did go with cherry wood in the end. I'm a big fan of cherry, so I'm gonna put one here also. It's nice. And now we're gonna get the meat on the grates. That's looking good. Oh, you can see the smell, the smoke coming already. So time to close the lid. I'm gonna get back to you in, well, 4 hours, I guess. No point in opening the lid until we get some ways into the process. So I'll see you guys then. Okay, we're 5 hours in. I lost track of time, but it's time to check out the meat to see where we are at. Oh man, that's looking good. Snake is behaving as expected. And here's the hunk of beef. So you can see obviously where the bark is and the rub, and this part without a rub at all. Quite a bit more shiny. I guess that's because the rub absorbs the moisture that comes up to the surface. Still not done yet though. I'm guessing another hour before this is done, so gonna close the lid now so I don't lose too much heat. And I'll see you guys in a bit. So the day is getting long. I'm losing daylight over here, so I'm gonna bring this one in. When it's done, I'm gonna show you indoors instead. But as you could already see, the rub makes a huge difference for bark because it absorbs juices from the meat and coagulates with proteins, etc. So it really helps, as you could see. The color of the meat differs whether you use smoke or no smoke. So if you don't have any wood smoke, it's gonna turn dark, mahogany red. In this case, we're using quite a bit of smoke, so it's going darker even. But there still is a difference between the no rub versus the rub version, as you could see. I'm gonna show you a close-up later on when it's done so you can see for yourself. But it does make a huge difference. So once it's done, we're gonna taste it and see how big of a difference it is. There is gonna be a difference, but I thought this was a fun experiment to do, just to show you and see for yourself. And again, this is something you can try at home. But if in doubt, always apply a rub. I apply a good rub to any barbecue meats and it always turns out better. Alright, so the beef ribs are done. I had them rest for a while, tented in foil. They look really good. Just gonna leave it on. As you can see, there's quite a bit of difference between the rub here and the no rub section. This bark looks way better, no doubt. And we already know that, but we're gonna slice through and see what it's like. That membrane underneath is really tough, but that's looking good. Looking real good. Nice smoke ring, real juicy. Quite a messy separation here, but the bones came clean out. That's good. That means they're tender enough. Yeah, look at this. That's the way to do it. And finally, the taste test. I'm gonna actually start with the no rub version. I don't know if you can see that, but has a different surface and texture from the rub version. So we'll just give it a quick. So this is really good. It smells, tastes of meat. Slightly tangy from the smoke, but still very mild. You can definitely taste the raw beef, nothing else. So it's good, but I'm pretty sure the rub version is going to be the winner. Yeah, it's better. I mean, rub is only surface treatment, but still you get to taste all that good flavor when you take a bite. Really good. Anyhow, I did this comparison so you don't have to. I'm gonna dig into some real tasty beef ribs. I'll see you in the next episode.